Hey there, Sidekicks Nation. It is Powerful Days with Manny Cabrera. I am your host, Manny Cabrera. Welcome to our Wednesday, June the 21st show. I hope that you are having an amazing day. I hope that you killed it. I am so excited today. Today's been a little bit of a tiring day. And why has it been tiring? Well, I'll tell you. I'll be happy to tell you why. I actually got to go with our summer camp. All of our summer camps from both locations actually went to play laser tag at Qzar today. And I got out there and I killed it. I did a pretty good job getting out there and playing laser tag with all of the kids, having a good time. So I am going to give you guys just a second to get started, but today we are going to talk about a great topic. Basically, we're going to ask and answer the question of, are you a complainer parent? And don't even know it, and what you can do about it. And so I'm really excited about this topic because it's one that is really important as a parent to kind of overcome, and then identify if you are, or if you're people who are, what you can do about it. So I'm gonna do a quick sound check over here on the other side on my other screen here. Let's see if we are in here. Yep, we are all set. And if at any time during our broadcast, if you have a question or anything like that, just drop it in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to answer it while we're talking. So, what have you accomplished so far this week, though? That's the main thing. I'm hoping that as a parent, rather than just letting life happen to you, that you are living with intention, that you are out killing it. Obviously, tuning in every day for our live show. I know the time changes a little bit from time to time, but we are going to lock it in pretty quick. As soon as the summer kind of starts to settle down for us here with our move and build out of our new location here in Fishhawk and everything like that. It's been kind of crazy. If you don't know, I actually am the chief instructor and co-founder of Sidekicks. We actually have two locations, one in the Fishhawk area and one in Wesley Chapel. And basically what we do is we help children, we help teens, we help adults to become better versions of themselves, to basically self-actualize and really to reach whatever goals that they have, so they can push themselves physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially along the way. And if you would do me a solid while you're watching this broadcast, just go ahead and hit the share button or invite people specifically to watch this, because this is a really great topic. Because I think that for a lot of parents, we get in a rut and we get into a lot of different situations as parents where we're just kind of overwhelmed by life. I mean, let's think about what we got to deal with on a day-to-day basis as a parent. I mean, let's start with the fact that, number one, we have to raise our children to be, great children. We want the best for them. Number two, if you're like my family, both parents are probably out there kicking butt somewhere in the workforce, to make ends meet or to help support the family in the way so we can, get everything done. And then we got to drive the kids to whatever activities that they are. If you guys go to some sort of, church or worship service, there's, things involved in that, volunteering at different organizations. Then there's, the actual interaction as a family. And if you have a significant other, then there's like trying to actually, have a relationship that's more than just being mom and dad, and so like there's a lot on our plate as parents, and we have a tendency sometimes to get stuck in a rut and kind of in a cycle of negativity. And I want to talk about today about, to identify maybe you're in that cycle, maybe you're in that rut. And you know what? I got to tell you, it's going to cause, if you stay in it, it's going to cause long-term damage to you and to your family in the whole. So like, how do you know that you're talking to a complainer parent, or, if you know that you're the complainer parent yourself? Well, here's a couple of things that I want to talk about to kind of identify whether or not you're the complainer parent or someone else is a complainer parent. So the first thing is that they offer quick reactive no answers. So, if your first inclination to anything that you hear is no, chances are you might be, have a negative mindset, or you are that complainer parent. So like when someone tells you, and so like the next step would be if someone tells you their problem, and just so you guys know, I'm reading off my notes right here. If someone tells you their problem, and maybe you offer the solution to them, or maybe you're the one who's being offered a solution. Maybe, they respond with something along the lines of, oh, well, I have a great way that, like maybe you say, oh, I have a great way to help you, to overcome that, or this is what's worked for me. During, maybe it's about morning routine or, what to do when you get dressed, stuff like that. Their immediate thing is, oh, well, they're pulling like they're a special snowflake, and like everybody thinks that they're, unique and that, their situation is not like anybody else's situation. They might say something along the lines of, oh, well, that may work for you, but it would never work for us. My kid is different, or, my family is different, or that would never work. They're just, telling you that it's not a good solution without really having sat down and actually examined if maybe it's even a possibility. I mean, what's the worst? A lot of times when people give you advice, they're like, worst happens if you try it. If it doesn't work. But if you're always shooting things down, well, then you're going to be stuck in that complainer-parent cycle or that complainer cycle. So if anytime anybody talks to you, when you're talking about challenges that you're having, if your first inclination is to shoot down any advice that you get, well, that's a really good indicator that your thought processes, your thought patterns are in the negative light right now. Like you're stuck in a rut. You're stuck in a cycle of where things are pretty, negative for you, So people who talk like that aren't really interested in, honestly, in having a solution. You know what I mean? They just, they're just stuck in their negative loop. And so a negative loop, or we call it the doom loop sometimes, is basically, it's like an emotional addiction almost. And so think of it like this. So let's say that something negative happens, something bad happens. Well, then we complain about it. Well, what happens is it creates a negative feeling, but there's also a little bit of a release when we complain. And so we actually get addicted to that complaint, or, to that cycle of complaining because it makes us actually feel better. Well, that complaining, though, it does lead to negative action and negative thought, and then, which leads to more negative things happening. Well, then we complain some more, and then we end up, having that emotional release, but that emotional release of negativity causes something else negative to happen, and then something, and we just get stuck, and we call it a doom loop because you're kind of like just spiraling down into, just worse and worse, maybe not actually worse things happening, but worse, as far as your mentality is concerned. And, think about how that's rubbing off on your kids. And I'm not saying that you got to be like super, super sunny sunshine. Talking through the real things that you're going through with your children is definitely an important way of teaching them how to cope with challenges in their life. But if you're just complaining without creating a solution, or complaining without identifying how you're going to create that pathway out of that situation, it's going to rub off, and then your kids are going to start adopting those negative mindsets as well. So they almost feel like some sort of like joy when they're in that negativity loop, out of it. That's, it may not be consciously that, I'm complaining, I feel so great. They're feeling this sense of negativity because, they get a little bit of a stress relief. So author Jim Collins calls this the doom loop. And in extreme cases, you just continue to spiral downward, and sometimes in extreme cases, it's like, it may lead to substance abuse, or, relationships that otherwise were healthy ending, or, even, in extreme cases, people who are unable to manage their stress, lashing out physically at other people. I'm not saying that that's you, but I'm saying that that's, sometimes it's people get caught in that cycle, and then that's what's happened because they don't know how to manage their way out of it. So that's definitely one way to know, if you're a complainer, if someone you're dealing with is a complainer. So another way to identify whether or not you're a complainer parent, or you're working with somebody who is a complainer parent, is, you always have something negative to say. So usually it's about the same few subjects. So it might be about how much they hate their boss, or, whatever this thing is, always comes back to these same couple of subjects of why things suck in their life, or, why there's issues going on in life. And again, they aren't really interested in a solution to the problem. They just want to get that small thrill that comes from, getting their say, or, from venting it. And they haven't really experienced enough pain, though. And this is really the critical part of it, though, is that they haven't really experienced enough pain either, emotional, or even sometimes physical, like if it's like a back issue or something like that, to actually make a change in their life. Once they get to the point where they're fed up with something, then they will actually change it to relieve it, because the pain of changing becomes less than the pain of remaining the same. Author Anthony Robbins talks about people will do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. And that's at least initially. They will do things to avoid pain. But the thing is that why people don't change is because the pain of remaining the same oftentimes is greater, or is less than the pain of changing. Once the pain of changing is, pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of changing, that's when people will actually make a change in their life. Or it may be that they have kind of a fatalist mentality and that they think that it just doesn't matter what happens, everything is always going to remain terrible. I mean, have you ever been around that person before who's just like that? You get in a group of people and they're always the negative one and it just sucks the energy out. Maybe it's you. I don't want to like cast aspersions towards you about whether or not it's you, but do you know anyone who's like that? You can already probably think in your head of a person who kind of has that fatalist, things will never get better. I'm always going to be stuck in this rut, or I'm always going to be stuck in this relationship. I'm never going to get a better job. I'm never going to be fit. I'm never going to be, whatever it is. And all they want to do is they want to complain about it, but they don't actually want to change it because they haven't experienced, the enough pain of the alternative of remaining the same. So this is actually huge for parents. I mean, because sometimes, as far as parents, you might be the complainer parent if you feel like there's a power struggle going on between you and your child. And so, like, for example, who's going to win in a power struggle between you, maybe and your spouse and the kids? You and your spouse should be on the same team when raising your children, or the other parent should be on the same side when it comes to raising the parent. It's not always the case, but if you feel like there's going to be, who's going to be in charge? Who's got the power? I mean, if you feel like you're in a power struggle and that there is no way out, it's a situation where you've got to, you've kind of figured out maybe you're the one that's in that mentality, that you're stuck in that negative loop. Like it's just a dead end. It's probably, you're probably the complainer. Truth is, though, you don't have to be in a power struggle, with your child, because there is a way out. You're the parent. You're the one who gets to set the ground rules. You're the one who gets to set the rules. You're the one who decides what activities your family is going to do. You're the one who enforces the rules. And so there's not a power struggle because you're the parent. You're in charge. And anything is coming in the negative side, as far as like thinking that, they're not going to do that or whatever it is, has everything to do with you basically equating a child with the adult in that relationship, and they're not. You're the parent. And so you got to kind of flip that script. So we have to be open. If, we're full of negative speech or we're full of negative self-talk, well, then how can we influence our children in a positive manner? We got to get over that real quick. And so, if the negative speech is full of anger and frustration, well, then the problem is that your kids are going to pick up on that. Number one, it's going to affect your relationship with them, but furthermore, it's actually going to affect their relationship with themselves, and they're going to begin to talk to themselves in a negative and hurtful manner, which is in turn going to lead to them adopting a lot of those same, mentalities of becoming a complainer parent or a defeatist mindset themselves. So, our goal in everything is that we want to help our kids to become the best version of themselves. And so the first thing we got to do is, to kind of overcome whether, if we've been going through, a tough time and we've developed a complainer mentality, we've got to stop and realize that continuing with that negative self-talk, continuing that negative speech patterns and negative actions, are hurting our children in the long run, whether it's, emotionally or how they're going to think about themselves, down the future, how they talk to themselves, how they interact with the world. And so continuing in that manner is in and of itself a selfish act, because we realize that as parents, we are no longer about just ourselves. We're, now also in charge of this life or this person's who, are in our care. And we are responsible for helping them to become the best version of themselves. It's one of the things that we talk about as instructors is that you can never have a bad day as an instructor, because every single time a student comes to class, that's the most important class that's for them. So if we're in the situation as a parent, sure, there are going to be days where we're probably going to screw up, and definitely, we can have bad days, but it cannot become a long-term trend, so to speak. So we've got to stop and realize that, number one, we got to abolish our ego. That it is not about us when we're raising children. It's actually about the child. What is best for the child? And so if I notice that I am developing a habit of negative speech, I've got to stop, and I've got to actually talk it through sometimes with my kid. If I start in on the negativity with them when I'm, not chastising them, but if I'm correcting them or something like that, or just complaining in general when I'm on the phone and they're around, well, I got to stop. And you know what? I can talk it out loud, and I can say, okay, you know what? That's actually probably not the best way for me to explain what is going on. Let me flip it and let me correct and talk about it in another manner. A lot of times you're going to find not only does that help the kid learn how to overcome negative feelings, but what will also happen is that you are going to start feeling better as well, because you stop. You stop the negative thought process in its tracks. You flipped it around and say, okay, how can I better explain that? How can I better think my way through it? What can I do instead of just complaining that's actually going to help myself through that process? So a lot of times it comes through just stopping, creating a break right there and then correcting it and restarting it. And so it's almost like if you were playing a video game and you're going along and you know what, you're getting to a part where you're not really sure what to do, and then you paused it for a second, just took a second to collect yourself and say, okay, what's the next step? You know what I mean? And so in that instance, you're going to be able to stop, reassess, adjust, and then when you hit pause again, go right back at it. Maybe, in the case of video game, you stop, you Google some cheat codes. I don't know. I'm not going to judge you in that regard. But, your brain is really incredible that you can be going along, stop, talk your way through your thought process, and then once you start again, your brain makes the leap over to connect both parts of that situation. So this is my advice to you guys, is to really, number one, start by, using it, the flip it method. Flip it, and like I said, is to stop and pause and then, reassess and re-talk it through. If your kid is right there and they heard you, I would talk my way through it. Okay, I had a really bad day about about these things, and here's a better way for me to look at it. Here's a better way for me to explain it, through that process. So this has been a really, I think, a powerful episode of Powerful Days with Manny Cabrera. Like I said, I'm me, Manny Cabrera. I'm interested in your thoughts. What are other ways that you, as a parent, abolish, that negative or complainer thinking in your life or in your family? I'm really interested in to know what your thoughts are. And you can actually message me directly, or you can put it in the comment section below. But like I said, the main thing is that if we're putting our children first, and I don't mean first above our own personal health and development, you got to take care of yourself. But if we're really making parenting a conscious process, then we've got to make sure that we're abolishing our ego out of the process to do the things that are going to be best for our children. And getting stuck in that negative doom loop is definitely not the best thing for our children. So I hope you take my advice and then you actually take action on it. But like I said, the very quick thing to do would be to use that flip it method. The other thing is to write out what your solutions to of your problems could be. And then start figuring out how you can take actions towards solving those issues, because let's be realistic. If you're complaining about your job, it may not be feasible to quit your job today, but what can you do in order to move in a different direction? Just complaining about it is not the solution. Taking action, that's the solution. So again, I want you to make it a powerful day. I'm excited to see you guys again tomorrow, and we'll talk again soon.